Hello, my name is Vania Fields, and welcome to my interpersonal communications presentation. Next slide. In this presentation, I'd like to discuss the various communication barriers, valuable communication techniques, and how those techniques have helped my personal growth in communication. Next slide. In order to accomplish this, we first must discuss my overarching goals for communication. This is to be a woman which embodies, that exemplifies the caring nature of Jesus Christ. I would like to do this by assisting the poor, the downtrodden, and those that are overlooked. I seek to accomplish this first by being a good student, then by being a good servant, and then teacher. I must be a great communicator in order to describe the good news of Jesus Christ, but also be able to describe the not so good news of the world. Next slide. Enlarging the conversation is the overall theme for our class. It describes how we're going to be able to expand our conversational skills. In week 1, Maureen Nixon described enlarging the conversation as not uncovering what you don't have, but rather uncovering what you have already and then improving upon those skills. In this class, we've been able to assess and dissect what our communication barriers are and be able to build upon those weaknesses and the strengths that we have so that we can overall enlarge our conversation. Next slide. My background is that when I found that we did the listening skills assessment, I found that I was a poor listener and ranked fared in just about every area of the listening assessment. What this means is that I'm a level 3 listener, which means that I just listen in spurts. So if I'm in a conversation with a person, I would not have retained very much of the conversation because I'm only listening in part. In order to overcome these, I had to employ some of the techniques that we'll discuss in the next slide. For me, I learned that areas of my primary focus are to include the reading of nonverbal cues, which include squarely facing the person, having an open posture, leaning forward during a conversation, making eye contact, and overall being relaxed. My behavioral blend identified that it's useful to understand your behavioral blend. My personality blend was C, which is, in a nutshell, cautious, competent, and compliant. This means that in order for a conversation to be worthwhile, or even any activity of my life, it has to be structured and it has to be rooted in a specific theme and a purpose. Knowing that what my personality blend was helps me to navigate conversations with other individuals. For example, if someone is in a conflict with a C personality, it's great for that individual to use techniques such as appealing to the person's intellect and using words such as, does that make sense to you? Learning that about myself really helped me to identify how I might be frustrating to other types of personalities, but also what I can do to make conversations easier for those other personality types. Next slide. Some of the interpersonal barriers that I defined for myself were hearing what you want to hear. In Burley's book, they described an individual who was excited about getting the highest number of particular orders for their company. The individual may have said, I would like to order 50 books, but because the person wanted to hear what they wanted to hear, they ordered 500 books. This is something that I struggle with. I struggle with hearing the good news that I would like to hear. One of the action steps that I've decided to employ in my future communication efforts is to confirm the main idea of every conversation at the end of the conversation to ensure that I have accurately depicted what the speaker has said to me. I will make sure that I repeat the words that are used and that I commonly reword and rephrase what the speaker has said to me to ensure that I have grasped the proper amount of information. Another area is that belief system and processes. Each person has a set belief system that they've been developed since they were children. Personal experiences, experiences of others, stories that have been told, all help to shape our belief systems. The writer Burley writes, as long as our beliefs stay out of our awareness, we consciously set up roadblocks to personal and professional development. What this means is that we might have belief systems, but until we identify those, we're not able to really separate them from areas that would hinder us in the future. So, an action step that I choose to employ is to make positive affirmations on a regular basis, not to present myself in a way where I'm speaking negatively about anything. I will always use positive affirmations, but then also be good at identifying what my personal belief systems are, and no matter what the area of conversation may be. Lastly, as a program manager of a transitional program, it's important that I'm able to communicate with our clients in a professional but also a caring manner. Paraphrasing was another technique that I found extremely useful for my personality type. It's described as having listeners put their feelings into words and then repeating those words back to them so that they understand that you understand how they feel about a particular subject matter. This will allow the person to understand that you're empathizing with what they feel and that you understand where they're coming from when they're speaking to you. The writer writes that when our feelings get identified and we nod in assent, our emotional levels recede and our brains actually work better. So it can improve the overall tone of the conversation just by sending those messages that you understand where a person is coming from and how they may be in the conversation. Next slide. One of the things that you really have to, any person who's communicating really has to contend with the internal and external noise pollution. Those are the voices in our heads, the activities of the day that we're thinking about while we're in conversation. The external noises are, the television, the kids are coming to ask questions. All of this can be going on right in the midst of a conversation. So what I found is that empathetic listening, the ground rules of empathetic listening, really help you to focus and weed out those internal and external distractions. One of the areas is actually seeking to not getting into your own internal distractions. So at the moment that you identify that you're thinking about something other than what the speaker is communicating, identifying that you're at that place and then rerouting your thought patterns to, again, bring focus back to the conversation at hand. I'm definitely learning in this class that when you identify and you're aware of these distractions, it's easier to disengage from outside distractions and you can pull yourself back into the conversation at hand. Next slide. Resistance and conflict. Addressing resistance and conflict can be very difficult, especially in a professional environment. For example, if you have a staff member, a co-worker, or even a supervisor to whom you don't feel quite comfortable addressing conflicts, or if you have a conversation that you must engage in and it's crucial, and you understand that the person may understand that it's crucial, for example, a termination of something of that sort, it can be difficult to have that conversation. What technique I found was really helpful for me was the I rational statement. And basically what this does is frames the statement in such a way that no matter what the conflict may be, it's done in such a direct but also empathetic way that no one can argue with the statement that is made, but every comment after that has to address to the core idea at hand. And this is done by first beginning the statement with expressing how you feel about the conflict or circumstance. So for example, someone might say, it makes me feel uncomfortable when. The next step in this is to say, or to give a description of the conflict. It makes me uncomfortable when you reprimand me in front of other co-workers. And then the last step is to explain the reason that makes you feel uncomfortable or why it makes you feel the way it does. So the comment might be, it makes me feel uncomfortable when you reprimand me in front of co-workers because they no longer seem to look at me as an equal. by giving that statement to your supervisor or whoever was the person that was reprimanding, you're able to clearly define the statement, and the person has to address the issue at hand, but it's also done in a way that doesn't require a lot of arguing, it doesn't accuse, or it doesn't make the person feel like they're being put on the spot. Next slide. In conclusion, identifying your personal barriers to your level 1 listening provides the starting point for better communication. For myself, understanding what my barriers are, I'm able to now work on them consistently throughout the rest of my life. But just knowing the barriers isn't enough. You have to make adequate change and really start to employ the techniques so that you can be a better communicator, not only for your community, but for yourself at large. This is my conclusion. Thank you so very much for this class, and I'm definitely going to be using these techniques in the future.